Right, here we are, December 1st already. Unbelievable. And I'm ready to do restorative yoga with you. I'm excited. I missed seeing you last week. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. So let's just take a moment to settle into a supported seated position. And feel free to use the back of the chair today. Since we're going to do a restorative practice, we're going to really welcome as much support as we can. And just make sure your feet are directly in line with the knees. You can have a little bit of space between the knees. And then your hands can just be palms against your thighs, sliding the hands a little closer to your torso so you can put the shoulders back. And then adjust your skull. So you're kind of sensing if the skull is supported by the spine. For most of us, we have to kind of remind ourselves to adjust the head slightly back. And then also taking care of the tilt of the head. We don't want to tilt down or up, just a neutral chin level with floor position is great. And then lastly, closing your eyes. The only reason you wouldn't close your eyes is if it takes you out of feeling present. For some of us, that is the case. So you just want to adjust your eyes in a way that makes you quieter. So sometimes that's just looking down or even softening your gaze. If you are somebody who eyes closed is not something that supports presence. Just start with a body scan. Just kind of observing where you hold the tension in your body. A lot of us, it's in the face. We have facial expressions. We have sense organs living on the face. We have a social mask that we all wear. So just taking a moment to imagine the skin of your face settling from the forehead all the way down to the chin. Just kind of releasing, letting that mask fall off. Softening the little muscles that surround your eyes, mouth. Even softening inside of the mouth. For most of us, there's some gripping in the neck and shoulders. Just kind of tune into that area of your body. Sometimes as soon as you bring your attention there, the tensing releases. Sometimes it takes a little more encouragement. Just let the shoulders melt away from your earlobes. Bring awareness to your belly. Again, culturally, we're kind of taught to constrict the belly space. Just releasing any gripping going on in the belly. We also store a lot of our emotional baggage in the belly. So bringing attention, bringing breath, and with the breath, bringing movement. Sometimes when we have ignored the belly or kept the belly tense, there's kind of a coldness. So you might envision the color that's associated with this area of the body, which is orange and yellow. Below the navel, it's orange. Above the navel, it's yellow. Both very warm colors. So just kind of envision a glowing orb. A ball of glowing orange, yellow light. And notice how the breath moves the belly and causes an expansion, which is the word for horizontal spreading, and an extension, which is the word for vertical elongation. Keep moving along the body and just pay attention to the legs. Legs do a lot of our heavy lifting. Bringing awareness to your legs. Thighs, the calf muscles, thigh bones, knees, shin bones. sensing into your legs, bringing your attention into your legs. Now feeling your feet against the floor. Notice where there's more weight, where there's less weight. Your feet were in sand, what would the imprint look like? Sensing the toes, spaces between your toes. Heavy heel bones. And now just practicing a whole body awareness. So if we just kind of shined a searchlight through the house of the body, each little room, now see if you can have all the lights on at the same time, the attention kind of filling the whole house of the body. Sensing energy, sensing sensation, sensing what just being attentive to the body feels like. There's your breath still going without any prompting, it just goes and goes. So before we get moving, I just want to bring your awareness to a really great yogi. I'm forgetting his name at the moment. He's pretty famous. He's a quadriplegic. And so he does his yoga pretty much like we're doing right now. So the movements they're really good for getting at the heart of the yoga, which is to still the mind, but they aren't exactly necessary. So if you can really work this practice of attentiveness, of using imagery, of sensing inward, you can get pretty close to the ultimate goal of yoga, which is samadhi, which is the kind of the unification, the feeling that you're part of the whole, the feeling that you are whole as an individual, but also part of the whole. So go ahead and gently, with that, open your eyes. Join our hands together in front of the heart. Just bow to your own heart, your own inner teacher. Just acknowledging that seed of potential, which is your heart. When you're ready, lift your head, let your eyes gently open. Release your hands. Welcome, everyone. So we had Nora and looks like Shar join us. Welcome to you both. So we're going to go through some seated, gentle warm-ups. We're going to kind of wake up the spine with a movement over the sitting bones, kind of oscillating. So you can have your hands on your thighs or maybe kind of sliding over the knees. And this is primarily kind of circling the sitting bones. So you're just going to establish that connection of your sitting bones against the chair, and you're just kind of oscillating around the sitting bones. The torso is following that fulcrum, the point where you meet the chair, and you're moving in one direction for now. And just notice how with the movement here, it gives you a chance to do the forward bend, the back bend, so the rounding of the spine and the arching of the spine. And it also gives you the chance to move the spine to each side, which is the lateral movement, the crescent shape of the spine. And nobody cares how fast you're doing this, and nobody cares how many times you do it. What's really important are two things. One is smoothness. So if you are feeling kind of like a machine that needs oil, I recommend slowing down your movement, or you might also make it smaller, or you might do both. So if you have that smoothness, you can explore kind of taking up more space. You can explore maybe a different rhythm. The other piece that's important here is really sensing that you're moving in rhythm with your breathing. So when you're coming kind of into that back bend, or the forward bend, there's a nice opportunity to breathe out when the belly is contracted and to breathe in when the belly is kind of forward and more open. And you might start to naturally line that up. You might kind of have to think about it a little bit. And that will also help you move at a rhythm that's really right for you, to move in the rhythm with the breath. So when you come to a nice place to kind of land and switch directions, you can just find that anywhere and begin slowly moving in the second direction. So last night in my restorative class that I do in person in Mount Horeb, I talked about, we did different movements like this on our hands and knees, but I talked about the definition in Ayurvedic medicine of youthfulness and of aging is when you're youthful, you're gooey. When you're aging, you start to dry out. And so these movements that are very fluid that we're doing like this, they support kind of promoting the gooiness in the body, the fluidity that keeps us moving with ease, keeps us feeling youthful. There's a teacher, a really wonderful teacher. God, names are escaping me today, but she says you're only as old as your spine feels. Vanda Scaravelli is her name. She has a beautiful book. I own Vanda Scaravelli. She's Italian. I think if she's still alive, she must still be practicing. You can find your way back to center. She's in her 90s, I believe, if she is still alive. So we're going to work with the neck and shoulders. You're just going to start with moving the shoulders from back to front and exploring space with your shoulders. So your hands need to be somewhere that's conducive to that. And again, you're looking for the smoothness. So if you, again, feel that kind of jerky, like you're making a many-sided shape rather than a circle, try to slow it down until you feel like you're coming into that more smooth, consistent, fluid feeling. So again, it might need to be fewer repetitions, might need to be a little bit kind of decreased range of motion. And just notice how it's not just the shoulders that are feeling the benefits here. It's the back body, the neck. Maybe you're starting to feel some benefits in your mind. And sometimes just less is more with these practices. Next time you bring the shoulders forward, just landing for a moment and reversing. So now we're going to move front to back. If you've ever had the experience, I think most of us have, of carving anything, could be just carving a little hole in the ground on the beach, you have to kind of apply even pressure, otherwise you end up with kind of a lumpy thing. So as you move, just kind of be evenly working that little circular or elliptical pattern you have going. And then you'll leave your shoulders back and down the next time they're there. And then you're going to tilt your head to one side, like your ears coming above your shoulder. And just check in with your sitting bones. Try to put weight back into the lighter sitting bone. I didn't tell you which side to tilt your head, so you have to find which sitting bone is lighter. And we're just going to do a semicircle of neck rolls, so we don't ever roll the head back. We just move from shoulder to shoulder across the chest. So on an exhale, bring your chin down toward your chest slowly. Inhale up to the other shoulder. Exhale down to the sternum. Inhale up to that first shoulder. Exhale down to the sternum. Make sure you're moving with your own breath. We don't have to be synchronized. Using just the weight of your head. You don't have to add additional force or weight. Just the weight of that heavy head. It's a great prop. Big 8-pound ball. Top of our bodies. How weird. Notice what the neck and shoulders are telling you. Maybe it's starting to change as you repeat. So my yoga practice really started to change for me. I did get burnt out about, I don't know, 8 years ago. when I realized I'm really not into the striving style of yoga, and I really don't feel good when I practice that way. So this is why I'm kind of, as I've started to teach more and more, I think I back off more and more, and I teach kind of less strenuous. Okay, and then back to center. And then once you're back to center, lift the head. Great. So we're going to work with the strap a little bit. And we want to make it a loop that doesn't, not elastic. So somebody asked if it's I forgot the adjective, but not an elastic strap. We never work with those. That's a different, that would be like a fitness rubber band. We don't use those in yoga. So it should always be a non-forgiving strap. It's containing your wrists. So if you know you have modifications you need, because we are taking the arms up, you might need a wider band to allow for the shoulders to be comfortable. You might even need to go into a goalpost position, which obviously you're going to need to size that for yourself. But if you're able to extend the arms completely, meaning your elbows are not bent, you want the wrist to be slightly wider than the shoulders, and you want to contain the wrists slightly. So we don't want to be a lot wider than this position, just slightly wider than the shoulders, unless you have a shoulder issue that requires that. So once you have your loop, you're going to try to fully straighten your arms. And again, your wrists are against the strap. You're going to try to straighten the elbows. And the shoulders are they're confused. They don't know where you want them to go. So remind your shoulders to stay anchored down. Don't let your shoulders climb into your ears. And then resist your fingertips away from the shoulders, meaning shoulders and fingertips are moving in opposite directions. It's okay if you get a little tired. The body is really clever at sneaking out of deeper stretches. So we are going to try to take the hands back, but what your body will try to do is push your head forward to deceive you that you actually moved your arms, but you want to keep your skull right over your spine. Don't let your face fly forward. Don't let your skull fly forward. And move your arms any amount slightly back. And just notice how it gently pushes the shoulder blades toward the chest, which lifts and spreads your chest. So we talked about the gooiness and the dryness. One area that BKS Iyengar believes gets dry is the sternum. And when we do chest openers, we wetten, that's the word, we wetten the sternum. So it's another way to kind of feel more alive in your body is to do some chest openers. Okay, so it's normal if you're getting tired. Let's just pause and put the hands down for a moment. We are going to do one more thing with this. So just maybe do a couple shoulder rolls once your hands are resting. Recover, breathe, smile, make sure you're not in an angsty space when you do yoga. And then we'll come back, and this time we're going to be moving to each side. So giving our spine that beautiful crescent shape. So again, try to work with a straight arm unless you're modifying for shoulder issues. And take the arms slightly back to your physical edge where you feel like you can't go any farther. Make sure your skull is still in line with your spine. And then you're going to exhale, gently tilting to the left. And again, just notice the sitting bones. If you kind of poured your weight over to that left sitting bone, pour some weight back to the right one. And gravity will help you here. If you kind of surrender to gravity, the arms continue toward the floor. The right side body is getting less brittle, it's becoming more gooey and sticky and elastic, which helps our breathing, which makes us feel better. Let the next two exhales, never done that before, exhales, just sink you a little bit closer to the floor. And then inhale, pick it up, lift, 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 and relax your arms again. Roll your shoulders. Do anything you need to do to recover physically. Maybe a few of those gentle rolls of your head. And then we'll go to the second side. So when you're ready, you can take your arms up. Straight arms as far back as they go. Your skull is right there above the spine. Inhale here, exhale, extending gently to the right. Establishing evenness between the sitting bones. And then see about surrender to gravity. Every exhale, you might feel a little bit more of that depth coming in, gravity kind of helping the arms move to the right, the left side body between the side ribs, yawning open. Support that with bigger in breaths, just nice, healthy, generous inhales. Two more good heavy exhales, just let those arms drop any amount. And then use an inhale to strongly lift you up. And exhale, lower the arms. So I intentionally wanted us a little tired because we're about to do some forward bends, and we're a little bit more receptive to the forward bends when we're tired, because otherwise the forward bends will just make us feel dull. So we're welcoming a restful feeling in the body now. So hopefully you have some blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can always use books, but blocks are really easy to find in a store. They're really easy to get online, and there's not a big difference of quality out there as long as they're the size and shape you need. The cheap ones are fine. And I use foam blocks, and most of them are foam. They do make other materials, but if they're heavy, they can be cumbersome. So I recommend the light foamy ones. So we're going to stand on the blocks. Your feet are wider than your hips. We're going to try to imitate more of a classical child's pose where you have your knees wide and your feet closer together. And just be back enough on your chair that you're not going to do a somersault out of it. So you want to be able to lean forward without losing ground underneath you. So it's perfectly fine to rest your arms on your thighs if you need to modify this and just come in easily. If you need to create space for the abdomen, you can always put a blanket on your lap or even a small bolster or pillow to keep space there. And then if you're able to, you could let your arms dangle. Your arms and shoulders come between the knees. Your head is going to hang. So there's that bowling ball prop that we own. Let it hang, and that's going to support the spine, releasing. Every exhale, the spine feels a little more surrendered. So with the feet elevated, we get a little bit kind of more of a plunging of the femur heads into the hip sockets. Really good little massage for the hips. Some of us have the arms really heavily on the floor, the hands on the floor heavily. If you want to kind of feel a little bit more depth here, cradle your elbows in your opposite palms, and then you take the weight of the arms into it. It's factored into that heaviness, just like your bowling ball heavy head. And just let the spine release like this. Now drop your hands, and you're going to come up with your stomach muscles engaged so that your spine is supported. You might move your hands onto your thighs and press down. Just bring yourself up. We're going to do side child now, which puts your spine again in that crescent shape. So we're going to be kind of folding forward directly over the right thigh now. So what you have to do before you actually fold forward is you're just going to kind of use the chair, maybe grab onto it, and help your torso turn so that your breastbone is really lined up well with your right leg. And then keeping that alignment, you can bring yourself down. Again, you could prop your arms there if you need a little spacer. You can get chest to thigh directly connected, which is nice for the nervous system. Try to let your head go, your arms dangle. When we have the pressure to the front body, it forces the breath to the back body, which is really a nice opportunity for the breath that oftentimes doesn't get to reach the chest and it doesn't get to reach the upper back body. So yoga is a great way to get our breath moving into the body in areas that it doesn't always reach when we're not doing funny shapes. You notice where you're holding back. Just personally, I noticed, and I've always noticed this on myself, a little bit of an inhibition in my right hip. So we do have safety nets in the body, but a lot of them are from past experiences and they don't apply anymore. But we still, because we're very intelligent beings, we still hold those records. So I don't need that holding back in my hip. And when I let it go, nothing bad happens. So yoga is always your laboratory to kind of safely explore these tension patterns we keep in our bodies, and we need to purge once in a while. Well, we actually need to purge quite often because we accumulate these histories, these physical histories. Some of those safeguards are necessary, of course, so that we don't burn our hand or walk into traffic, things like that. But a lot of them are just hanging out because we didn't purge them. Okay, so we're gonna move into a twist, but stay where you are. Just kind of come halfway out of it. And see if you can bring your left arm over the outer right leg. It's a little bit awkward, but just prop it or throw it over there. It doesn't have to be any specific position. And then take your free right hand to the back of your chair. And then using that weird limp kind of arm that's connected to your side leg, just help yourself gently turn. And it might help you to look over to the right. And because this is restorative, this isn't going to be your deepest, craziest twist. You're just, again, kind of creating this new weird container for your breath. If your head wants to just kind of sit against that left shoulder, just let it do it. Sometimes we get more accomplished when we support the body in resting. Good. So now just kind of free yourself out of there. Any way that you can get out of there is perfect. Bring your torso up. Sit back on your chair. Give yourself a couple moments to receive nice full breath because we're doing a lot of compression. Just give yourself a moment to have good breath into the diaphragm. And then when you feel ready, we're going to do that side child. So before you fold over, just kind of use what you've got to help you turn your torso. You might press your arm against your leg. You might grab onto the chair. Help your sternum really look at your left leg. And then keeping those alignment points of your chest and your leg, just kind of fold down. This is where your arms dangle. We're not twisting yet. Your head is releasing down. Your right leg is passive. Check in with your left hip, how it's responding. Is there a gripping? Is there a holding back? And when we move sideways like this, I usually notice sensation in the opposing side, usually in the lower back. Maybe not true for you, but I definitely notice my right lower back tingling in a good way. Let the pressure of your thigh against your chest push the breath into the back body. Visualize that. Visualize your breath spreading the distance between the back ribs, the intercostals. We talked about brittle and supple. Think about supple, elastic intercostal muscles between your back ribs. So now we'll just include that twist. So again, see if you can bring that right arm across to the outer left leg somewhere. It's probably going to be arm against leg. Maybe it's your triceps or your outer upper arm against your thigh or your knee. And then you'll slide your left hand onto the chair somewhere to give you support to help you just gently turn. We're not trying to come upright, so you're still kind of in a forward bend, but you're including a twisting action. If you want to apply a little more pressure of the right arm against the left leg, that will help you deepen the twist, but it's not necessary. Again, if your head wants to just kind of dangle, let it dangle. And after your next exhale, just kind of ease yourself out of there on an in breath. Come back to center, come back upright. Good. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit with our hips here. Figure 4. So the unmodified chair version is bringing ankle to thigh above your knee. And for those of us that need to modify that, it's going to be more of an ankle to shin, which means you have to extend your right leg. So we're going to start with the left knee bending. And the right knee either is bent and you're propping above the knee, or you have to straighten your right leg and prop your leg to your shin. Okay. So again, you want to make sure you have a good purchase on your chair. You're not on the very edge because we are going to lean forward. We don't want to roll out of it. If your knee is responding here, that's a red flag. So we want to feel the left hip. If your knee is responding, it's a sign that your knee is doing what your hip is reluctant to do, which is a common thing with our hips. So to get into the hip, you need to back off somehow. That might mean you don't lean forward into it. It might mean you have to go to your straight leg version. Even if you can physically get your ankle onto your thigh, it might not be a good choice. So just make sure knee is neutral, this is not a knee rotator. We're rotating our hips. If you're able to, you're going to bring a little more into it, leaning forward. So we're going to just try to relax the face. Again, if you can stay present with eyes closed, that's a way to kind of power down where we don't need to have effort in this pose. And just imagine you're letting your breath, like we've all seen little dust devils sweeping the leaves around lately. Imagine your breath is doing that very same thing inside of your left hip joint. The hips are a classic area of our bodies for holding those long, lifelong kind of lessons that a lot of are no longer necessary. I always include hip openers on restorative week because restorative week includes pranayama, which is breathing, and yoga is an 8-limb path. And it follows a succession of steps, of which yoga asana, what we do, poses, are only the third in that 8-limb path. So after yoga asana is pranayama, the breathing. But then we head into meditation. And the classical meditation pose is full lotus pose, which is a deep, deep hip opener. And it's really a doorway. The physical posture is a doorway to help the mind to settle. So just a few more breaths here on this first side, this first hip side. I'm just thinking about layers of an onion. Peeling back those layers of tension. There's newer inhibitions in the hip. There's old, decades-long inhibitions in the hip. And now on an in-breath, just bringing yourself upright. And you want to make sure to stretch that leg out straight as can be. Pull your toes toward you like you're letting off the gas. Tighten up the knee. This is going to take care of any unwanted rotation. And then we'll move to the second side, which could be different. For most of us, it is. So just see about where you need to prop your right ankle. Maybe it's above the knee. Maybe you're going to have to work with a straight left leg. You decide. And then you're going to do the forward tilt, maybe with your torso. Some of us, if the knee is talking to you, you won't need to include that. You're just trying to get enough sensation, meeting the physical edge, where you're able to breathe, your mind is still present, you're not white knuckling, you're also not bored, you're not falling asleep, thinking about something else. So our ability to remain attentive is a big clue if we have the right version of the pose for ourselves. Because if your mind wanders, usually because you're bored or you're stressed. Being absorbed mentally is a clue. It's a sign, it's a marker of perfection in your pose. We'll stay another minute. So with hips, we have to wait out the reflexes, the reflexive gripping and contracting and those safeguards we talked about. So just think about the little dust devil and the breath sweeping around the right hip space. Keep peeling back the layers of the onion. Just a couple more good exhales. Letting the weight of your torso and gravity drop you in a little deeper. And then you want to use the in-breath to lift and lengthen back upright, extending the right leg and put the heel on the floor, pull the toes toward you, firming that leg. Kneecap shouldn't be able to wiggle around. It's going to realign the knee if it did get a little torqued at all. And we're going to do about 10 minutes of just standing, gentle work. So feel free to come up to standing mountain pose. This is the first pose we're going to do. I'm going to adjust my camera here. There, I think that'll work. You shouldn't need anything for this standing mountain pose. Your feet can be joined if you're able to support it. If you need a little more stability, feet separate up to hip distance. And just put the second toes directly in line with the heels. For most of us, that's a good alignment. Lift all of the toes, create space between them, and then place the toes down. And then with the toes and the ball mounds down, draw the heels back. So you're encouraging width and length to your feet. Shoulders above the hips. So for most of us, roll the shoulders back, skull above the spine. Drop the shoulders. Again, if you can maintain presence, eyes closed. Also, if you can maintain stability. Otherwise, just a soft gaze with eyes open is perfectly fine. And so kind of like when we were seated, there's more effort here, of course, but a lot of this pose is really using the imagination. There's effort, definitely. But just kind of envision the muscles of your legs grabbing onto the bones. The flesh of the buttocks compacting forward toward the front body without hardening the buttocks. The backs of your thighs absorbing the fronts of your thighs. The tip of the tailbone, like the eyeball of a periscope, trying to look at your front body. Slacken your jaw. Just imagine little tethers coming out of your fingertips, and they're connecting with the floor, and they're tight like guitar strings. And then imagine a tether from the top of the head to the ceiling, a tightening guitar string as well. And let your feet root down 10 feet below you into the floor. So that the tiny amount of space between your feet and the floor no longer exists. And just imagine yourself here as if you were resting on the floor on your back. And see with the next couple of breaths, if you can imagine as you breathe in, extension and expansion. Have you ever seen the artist again? I think his name is something Gray, but the names again are escaping me. But he draws these beautiful images of the energy networks in the body. There's a lot of grids going on in his depictions of the human form. As you breathe, as you take a breath in, just imagine vertical lines and horizontal lines spreading throughout the body. BKS Iyengar called the area where these lines intersect the 0 points in the body, specific energetic kind of high points in the body. And when we can expand and extend at the same time, we gain a lot of stability. Just go ahead and blink your eyes open. You can shake your limbs or loosen the grips of the pose. We'll use a chair seat for standing forward bend. Just checking the time. So you're going to face the chair seat. If you're able to comfortably rest your arms directly on the chair seat, that will be what you do. Otherwise, you can elevate the chair seat with anything. You could use blankets, you could use blocks. But for this pose, we want the heels right under the hips, and we want to be pretty close to the chair. We are going to do today our downward facing dog, where we are farther from the chair. So this pose, you're just going to be pretty close to the chair. And try to get your head to rest somehow, directly on your arms or on a prop. You're working towards straighter legs, but don't force it, but work to that physical edge, so that area of physicality, of sensation. We're definitely not in our sitting on the couch eating potato chips mode. We're also not stressed out physically, so it's right in the middle. The feet you were just standing upon for mountain pose, you want those very same feet. Even weight distribution, soft feet, broad feet, long feet. You might have started with some props on your chair, and at some point you might notice you no longer need them, that your body's actually becoming a little longer, that you might feel the mind getting a little more complacent. Those are clues to drop the propping, so you can keep tracking with that physical edge. You're going to start to just elongate the torso by stepping the feet slowly farther away. So this will be more like our downward dog version. You might be able to keep your forearms on the chair, but the upper arms are probably going to extend off the chair. And then your head will probably just kind of dangle. Keep the feet spacing very generous. Maybe even slightly wider than your hips. Just feel yourself as a container for the breath. Now start to walk the feet in. Step the feet closer, bring your hands to the chair. We're going to do the wide version of a standing forward fold with the chair seat still as our support. So sometimes we do this pose with the chair farther away so that we kind of have the torso elongated, but for this one today, we're going to keep the chair close. And again, just like that first standing forward bend, you'll probably be able to keep all of your arms above the chair seat. Your feet are going to open wide. Make sure your toes turn in though, so they're in front of the heels. You don't want to be toeing out here. It's not the pose. So your second toe is aligning with your heels. Again, adding height to the chair if you need a little bit closer to your head. You can use your arms. Try to take the head down so it's restful. And then an important thing to try to work on here is that the feet are balanced. For a lot of us, we end up sitting back on the heels. So just keeping track of your weight in your feet. And when the feet are balanced, we can trust that our hips are above our heels, which is good alignment. So it's as if your legs are against a wall. Let your outer ankles open here. Go ahead and start to lift your head. Bring your hands onto your chair seat. Just gently walk the feet in. Come all the way up. We're going to come back to sitting. So before we come into our final relaxation, we're going to do just a little bit of a pranayama, a breath exercise. I'm just using a blanket over my feet because my feet are cold. So being cold is never helpful when we're attempting to quiet the mind because it keeps us kind of out in the external world. So restorative practice, we do kind of get colder, so we're not as active. So it's important to be in a warm room and you can put your socks on and your sweater and just be comfortable. Feel free to sit back on the back of the chair again for support. We're going to practice 3-part breathing today. So the 3 zones are kind of belly, rib cage, and collarbones. And we're going to practice breathing in kind of a separated way and then breathing out in a very fluid all together at once way. So you can kind of imagine as you breathe in the belly opening the abdomen, like we talked about in the beginning of class, kind of the extension and expansion. And then we want to think about expansion in the rib cage for that second part of breath. So kind of like your rib cage gets a little bit wider. And then we want to think about the collarbones actually lifting forward, moving forward on that third part of breath. So when we breathe this way, it kind of ensures that we get the breath high enough in the body, which is a more satisfying breath. Oftentimes we don't get that far with our breathing. So one way to make sure we get to the collarbones is instead of inflating your abdomen when you breathe in, even though you do want it to move and expand, don't poof it out, because then we won't make it to the chest. So it's kind of like a little bit of a contraction, even though the belly is going to kind of broaden. You're not letting it poof out because then the breath won't reach it. So for the first part, let's just do each part individually. Take one hand over your abdomen and close your eyes. And we're not going to do all 3 parts. We're just doing belly breathing in and exhale. And don't worry if you don't feel a lot of exaggerated movement. Just hand to belly is raising awareness, just bringing awareness to the abdomen. You might practice what it feels like to actually inflate the belly. And then we don't get the breath up into the chest, the upper lobes of the lungs. I think there's an expression about the way the abdomen works in pranayama is like an iron t-shirt, which I think it's helpful, but if it's not helpful, don't use it. It's a little bit of a container, even though you don't want to stifle the breath. It's a little bit of a container to help move the breath up higher. Okay, so let's move to second part. Just kind of grab hold of your rib cage with both hands. And you can feel that one. When you breathe in, there's a broadening there. Okay, and lastly, just bring your hands just kind of lightly over the collarbones. And again, you might not feel this one, but awareness, imagination, very useful. We're just trying to kind of lightly float or lift the collarbones, also spread. So those extension, expansion images. Okay, so hands are relaxed, either palms down or palms up, shoulders are relaxed. You always sit up nice and tall to support pranayama. We do lower chin to chest for pranayama. So bring your chin toward your chest, but also bring your chest toward your chin. And then you're just going to try to separate it out. So belly breath, pause just briefly. Rib cage breath, pause just briefly. Collarbone breath, pause, and then let it all out. And just breathe in normally. We need to separate these because they're bigger breaths. Normal breath in, normal breath out. And then again, the belly, the rib cage, the collarbones. All the breath goes out. Normal breath in, normal breath out. If you need more than one, you always have to listen to your own inner teacher. Okay, so practice a couple more of these on your own. Keep your eyes pointed toward your cheeks. It is stimulating to work with inhale. We don't want our eyes rolling up. And after your next big whoosh of exhale, settle into natural rhythm of breath, the breath that does not need any conditioning, does not need any effort. You're going to turn the dial down as far as you can, the effort dial, and you're just becoming passive witness. Notice your energy, body, sensation, breath, your attention. As many facets of your here and now experience as you can notice. Take it all in. So from Mary Oliver's Devotions, I chose this poem today. Lines written in the days of growing darkness. Every year we have been witness to it, how the world descends into a rich mash in order that it may resume. And therefore, who would cry out to the petals on the ground to stay, knowing as we must, how the vivacity of what was is married to the vitality of what will be. I don't say it's easy, but what else will do if the love one claims to have for the world be true? So let us go on, cheerfully enough, this and every crisping day, though the sun be swinging east, and the ponds be cold and black, and the sweets of the year be doomed. Let's take a nice inhale and let it all flow out. Joining your hands together in front of your heart. Taking a light, easy smile to the face. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. Thank you so much for being here today, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Enjoy the day.